Is it time for Jasprit Bumrah to retire from Test cricket?
For someone who's played 48 test matches, picked up 219 wickets with an average of 19.8, with that he has 15 fifers, he's already in the conversation of being one of the greatest fast bowlers India has produced in the test format. But recently there has been a lot of conversations and comparison with Mohammad Siraj, not just in terms of numbers, but people have brought up the fact that why is Jasprit Bumrah getting the special treatment, why is his workload management being talked about, whereas here we have Siraj playing all the 5 test matches without a conversation of him being even rested. Now this is where in this video we will break down and compare Mohammad Siraj and Jasprit Bumrah and look at their spells, look at the amount of overs and look at the workload in each of the series since Jasprit Bumrah's comeback in the test format. Now before we do all of this, hit that subscribe button.
It is no secret that fast bowlers get injured the most often. This has also been the case with Jasprit Bumrah, who's gone through multiple injuries across his career. While he started playing Test cricket in the 2018 series, in a couple of years' time he had already become a sort of spearhead of this bowling attack. And what that meant is that from a very early age in his test career, Bumrah was already part of a lot of important conversations and a lot of important wickets that he's taken through the test series. It is only natural that because of the kind of workload and the action itself that he had, he was at some point going to get injured. This also eventually happened in 2022 July when Bumrah was ruled out of test cricket for a long time. In fact, he took a period of 17 months to finally stage a test comeback. This test comeback came in December 26, 2023 when he was on the tour to South Africa. And if we thought that the Bumrah before his comeback was a great bowler, his test numbers after the time he's come back are insane. In the 18 test matches that Bumrah has played since his comeback, he's got 91 wickets at a very impressive average of just 16. Not only that, but he's struck at 33.8, he's got 7 fifers in this period, but above all, he's also bowled the most number of overs by an Indian bowler. He's bowled 513 overs. To put it into context, no other Indian bowler in this period has even bowled 500 overs. In fact, the person who's second on this list for India is Ravindra Jadeja, a spinner who's bowled 489 overs. In fact, India's second fast bowler on this list is Mohammad Siraj, who's bowled 477 overs. And it's surprising to see that in this period, although we are not discounting Siraj's efforts, Bumrah has been the leader of the pack, not only in terms of his numbers, but also in terms of his workload. And this is where we get to comparing Mohammad Siraj with Jasprit Bumrah. You need to understand that this is not a comparison of the kind of stats they have in place. It is not a comparison of who has been a better bowler, but just a comparison because whenever we talk about fast bowlers and workload in India, the only two names who get propped up are firstly Jasprit Bumrah for the amount of injuries he's been through and how good a bowler he is, and secondly Mohammad Siraj. Mohammad Siraj is known to be a bit of a workhorse, and every series in and out you can see him bowling his heart out, putting a lot of effort for the side. And so it only made sense to compare these two bowlers who also happen to be spearheading the current pace attack.
The starting point of these findings are from when Jasprit Bumrah made the comeback into the test format, and that is 26 December, the tour to South Africa. Some other things that you need to keep in mind are the numbers that we have found for the long spells that each of them have bowled, or the breaks between spells don't account for session breaks, in the sense that they don't account for lunch breaks or the break that you get during tea. The other break that we don't account for is the break the bowlers get when the batters are out there doing their job. But this in a sense cancels out because both the bowlers are in the dressing room taking a break at the same time. And one of the most important points to keep in mind are both the fast bowlers have two different body types. The recovery time, the workload management, all of that differs, and it totally depends on the individual themselves, which is also why we cannot possibly account for the net sessions, the amount of time they do spend recovering, and the practice matches before the real series starts. And something we do repeat once again is that we are not discounting Siraj's effort in those 17 months where Jasprit Bumrah was not available in the test squad.
One of the first things that people talk about and the kind of narratives that are floating around is that Mohammad Siraj is more of a workhorse, is that Mohammad Siraj bowls a lot more overs. However, our findings are that in most of the series since his return, Jasprit Bumrah has consistently outbowled Mohammad Siraj in terms of the number of overs in each series. If you look at this table here, you'll see that in the first 4 series itself, Bumrah has already bowled a collective of 59.5 overs more than Mohammad Siraj. Now, one of the series, that is the India-England series in 2024, you will see that Bumrah has considerably outbowled Siraj, but this is also because Siraj has missed one game of test cricket. However, the difference is still extremely stark. There's a difference of 36 overs. And from there, even if you come to the India versus Australia and the India versus England series that have happened in the Sena countries itself, you'll realize that although Siraj has bowled more overs, there are conditions reasons to this. Siraj bowled a little over just 5 overs more than Bumrah in the Australia series, but that's also something to be noted that Bumrah in that last test was injured very soon in the first bowling innings. Not only did he not come back to ball after that injury, but he also did not bowl in the second innings of that match. And in the India vs England series, Siraj has bowled about 20 overs more than Bumrah. Now there's a couple of reasons for this. Firstly, Bumrah has just played one test match less, and if you look at it from that perspective, Siraj has bowled just 20 overs more despite playing in 2 more bowling innings. Now I highlight this because especially in this particular series, there have been a lot of runs that have come by and teams on average have been bowling 100 plus overs. And so in that context, 20 overs is essentially just one innings worth of bowling.
Something very interesting we found out in terms of the amount of spell each bowler bowls is the fact that Jasprit Bumrah, not only does he bowl more spells abroad, but especially in India, Bumrah is more likely to be called back to bowl another over. If you look at this table, you'll again realize that if you look at the first 4 series, Bumrah has bowled 18 more spells than Siraj, which means Jasprit Bumrah is called back to bowl another set of overs more often than Siraj. And even in the case against Australia and England, where Jasprit Bumrah was injured in that last game, they've bowled similar amount of spells, but something you have to keep in mind is that not only was Bumrah injured in the last game against Australia, but he did miss that one test match in the England series, which means even though Siraj has been bowling a lot more overs in these 2 series, Bumrah still has been called back more often. And this just goes to show the dependency over Jasprit Bumrah, because he's used in 2 cases especially. One where the team is conceding a lot of runs and Bumrah is called back to contain runs, and second, when India is under pressure and not getting any wickets, you already know that the captain is looking to Bumrah to get that breakthrough.
Now while the first couple of insights highlight that Jasprit Bumrah has just bowled more than Mohammad Siraj, something you also need to take note of, and something that is a very interesting development, is that Bumrah also gets smaller breaks as compared to Mohammad Siraj. If you look at this table, it highlights the breaks that these bowlers get in between their spells in terms of number of overs. Barring India vs New Zealand and India vs England in 2025, you'll see that Siraj has got a much longer break in a lot of these series as compared to Jasprit Bumrah. Especially in India, where Bumrah is seen as more of a wicket taker than Mohammad Siraj for whatever reason. You'll see that the difference in the breaks is huge. Where Mohammad Siraj was getting about 21.4 overs of break in the India vs England series in 2024, Bumrah was getting just 13 overs of break. The only argument here is the timing of these breaks. For example, if you see in the India vs England series, Bumrah gets about 13 overs of break. Now it's very possible that maybe Bumrah at the end of the day has come in for a spell and will not bowl from there up until the end of the day. And you include that and then add the overnight break, and from there the next morning Bumrah comes to bowl immediately. But what is not accounted for is that Bumrah stopped bowling 13 overs ago last night, which means he got about an hour and a half off, and after that he had the entire night to recuperate. But something that counters that straight away is the amount of overs that Jasprit Bumrah has already bowled and the number of spells he bowls. He's just called back a lot more times.
And this is why we get into the workhorse aspect of things. The narrative that Siraj bowls a lot more over in a particular spell than Jasprit Bumrah. But what's fascinating is if you look at this table, you will realize even though there are series where Siraj does bowl a lot more overs on average in a particular spell, the difference is not drastic. In fact, it's not even more than an over. But saying that, the reason we do think Mohammad Siraj is a workhorse, and he surely is the fact that Siraj's longest spell of the day will almost always be longer than Bumrah. Not only does Siraj have the endurance, but the ability to bowl a lot more overs than Bumrah in a particular spell.
And the simple and straightforward reason for this is the biomechanics of Jasprit Bumrah and also the injuries that this has caused to him. The biomechanics of Bumrah paints a very interesting picture. Now as it is already very unnatural on the body to be a fast bowler, but if you're Jasprit Bumrah, you just make this much worse. Not only do you have a very differentiated run-up, which in fact is just a few hops and a small jog, but from there his stride, his hyper-extended elbow, and even the follow-through and his arms almost hitting each other in that follow-through are all completely unnatural. And also because of the fact that he generates a decent amount of pace, and that too from such a small momentum run-up, it means that it's just adding a lot more load to his body. This also accounts for all of the injuries that he's had in his career. Even after that 17 months that Bumrah took to come back to Test cricket, and even after starting to playing Test cricket, he was once again injured in the Border Gavaskar Trophy Down Under in the final Test match. This caused him to miss the Champions Trophy, some part of the IPL, and only from there he was able to finally come back. And in this England series is where the conversation around his workload already started. And this begs the question, does Jasprit Bumrah really deserve the special treatment, especially when you consider that he's such a prone bowler when it comes to injury? If you're a fan who has been following Indian cricket for a while, I think the numbers in themselves should give you this answer. Since his Test debut, Jasprit Bumrah has been exceptional. He's been the 4th highest wicket taker for a pacer in the world of Test cricket. Even beyond this, in the top 10 list, he's the only bowler in Test cricket currently to have a sub 20 average. Also since this period, he's been so effective because he's had the most number of fifers. But the hype around Bumrah has especially gone up since his comeback. Not only is he topped the charts for anything that he's done since 26 December 2023, but his numbers back this. Among the top 10 wicket takers in the world since 26 December 2023, Bumrah has the best average, best strike rate, most number of wickets taken, and he also has the most number of fifers for a top 10 bowler. And if it's not enough to compare Jasprit Bumrah just to the current players in the world, we also look at the best fast bowlers in the world right now, that's Kagiso Rabada as well as Pat Cummins, and then we also compare Jasprit Bumrah to some of India's greatest ever fast bowlers. At the same point where Bumrah has bowled 91 innings in Test cricket, he's almost on par with Pat Cummins as well as Kagiso Rabada. In fact, he's the only bowler to have a sub 20 average for anyone who's played 91 innings in Test cricket. And if you compare him to Kapil Dev, Zair Khan or Ishant Sharma, his numbers stand out. While Kapil Dev is the only one who comes close in terms of the number of wickets, at the same point, Jasprit Bumrah greatly outclasses both Zair Khan as well as Ishant Sharma, not only in the number of wickets but also in their bowling averages. Not only that, he's someone who consistently gets quality wickets. 63% of all Test wickets that Jasprit Bumrah has gotten has been batters from the batting position of 1 to 6. And even his wickets in Sena are the exact same. He's got 62% of wickets of just top order batters batting in the positions of 1 to 6. And for the people who are saying that he's only got more wickets of tail enders in this series, it is also important to get them out because otherwise you're not getting your 20 wickets. While by no means are we looking to disregard the efforts of any bowler across the world, especially those of the Indian cricket team, it is very evident that Jasprit Bumrah is special, and so it becomes important to make sure that India has their premier fast bowler in good shape for Test cricket. Unless it is his own decision to retire from Test cricket, it is important for us not only as Indian fans to continuously support him, but also for the BCCI to figure out the best way to make the best optimum use of Jasprit Bumrah. This has been our video on Jasprit Bumrah, his workload, and whether or not he should retire from Test cricket. Thank you so much for watching. All of our links are in the description. Definitely give us a follow. Like this video, comment down your thoughts below, share this video with your friends, but most importantly, hit that subscribe button. About 50% of you aren't subscribed. Also, hype this video if you can so it's pushed out to a lot more people. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.